Three men walk into a bar. The bartender says he's so hungry he could eat a hawk. A wolf, a dragon, and a centaur destroy the bar. Welcome back to another Berserk video, and today, as I'm sure you've guessed, we will be discussing the monster trio, as I've dubbed it, of Griffith's army. I see these three in their own special category, opposed to apostles such as Zod and Roxas, as they all hold the distinct role of captain in the reborn Band of the Hawk, archers, giants, and lancers. I can tell Miura had so much fun designing and drawing these three, as both their normal and release forms are like waterfalls of pleasure for the eyes. From their weaponry, faces, armor, bodies, abilities, personalities, and moments so far, these three are criminally underspoken about within the Berserk community. The main gripe I have with them is I only wish they had more significant roles in battles thus far against main characters. The archer Irvine is a mysterious misanthrope who's caused an insane amount of conflict within me towards demonkind in Berserk. Irvine is captain of the Band of the Hawk's archers, exhibiting unparalleled precision that we can only wish the assassin's attempt on Trump also had. All this is even more impressive based on the strong implication he is completely blind, using his bow as a source of sight. Outside of being known as a guts victim, the mighty giant Grunbeld is revered as the Great Flame Dragon. His character is one of a confusing moral code just like Irvine, as he seemingly has a strong warrior discipline laced with honor and pride that grants respect to the worthy. Despite that, we also know he is an apostle and did sacrifice those he loved to eternal damnation for power, so once again it's just like, The final character of discussion today is the Moonlight Knight, Sir Locus. All three demons have slightly differing roles outside their military expectations, Grunbeld being a scary bodyguard and Irvine a reclusive hunter. Locus, however, is easily the most important, politically and socially speaking. As he sits upon the Council of Falconia, this gives his voice weight as well as his body, and Griffith directly relies on his input and control of affairs when he is not present. The man is of an impassive nature and, much like Grunbeld, reserved from frivolous exploits. Both Locus and Grunbeld are introduced in the same event, the reclamation of Shet, following the reincarnation of Griffith at the Tower of Conviction. Locus is debuted with an electric speed lance, piercing the heads of 6 entire men. Every time these apostles are introduced, Miura wants them to be remembered, and each one is just as cool as the other. He rips his weapon back out with a sinister silhouette of lance and lancer shown, the victims plopping to the ground all in one swift motion. He then simply trots forth amongst enemies, donned with pointed pauldrons and a long-lined visor brow, which looks more ceremonial than practical. I have no clue what his helmet symbol means, there doesn't seem to be any indication across the manga or related sites, and the things I did find pointed me towards far-right white supremacism, which I doubt was the intention. So if you know, comment down below. Lifting his visor reveals a man of sharp, handsome and striking features with eyes that look a little evil. He apologizes to the Kushans for the unfair advantage he possesses being on horseback, a hint of his own honor code, and addresses Griffith as the Hawk of Light. Griffith doesn't even need to confirm his question, just accepting his sword, to which Locus cutely exclaims delighted, and then completely massacres the remaining Kushans with Zod. His immensely long lance is perfect for crowd control, piercing many at once, and you gotta feel bad for the last guy in this shot. When it got to him, he had 3 other dudes, body, face, smush on, and as a drummer for myself, that fact alone would be worse than the imminent death a nanosecond away. Grunbeld appears in chapter 184 due to Griffith's godly presence. Griffith's mere existence draws lesser beings towards him, and Grunbeld blasts through a barred wooden door, impaling a Kushan warrior's head. The other soldiers cry out in fear as a beastly terror marches forth into their just captured fortress, donned with terrifyingly imposing armor, a gargantuan scaled shield, and equally spiky great hammer. This dragon-esque attire is how his human form appears, and subtle foreshadowing to his transformed state. Grunbeld keeps moving forwards, eyes painted with a soulless, otherworldly essence. The Kushans bravely stand their ground, pointless unfortunately, as just like Guts, but 100 times stronger, Grunbeld unleashes an inbuilt arm cannon, a furious hell being blasted at his enemies. Countless soldiers are eviscerated by that explosive power, but this shield ain't done yet, ejecting 2 blades from the mouth, slashing away with the shield, bodying away with the hammer. He does this effortlessly due to his immense size, paired with his wide range of weaponry, making him a diverse fighter, and when he reaches his goal, Grunbeld kneels down next to Locus and Zod in front of his rightful king, which increases Griffith's grandeur, knowing how easily he controls these walking bombs. A quick mention that we won't be discussing Berserk the Flame Dragon Knight, aside from the Wikipedia type facts that are given as canon, but creatively it wasn't written directly by Miura and therefore of a significantly lesser quality. Irvine is introduced a few chapters later in 192, without muttering a word, still establishes himself as a serious statement maker. From the far distance of the battlefield, Irvine snipes 5 Kushan soldiers with so much power their heads are ripped cleanly off their body. The physics and logistics of this feat is nothing short of mind-blowing, and we flash to the man himself with 5 arrows knocked on a bow that looks like something straight out of Terraria. A reminder that this is still just his human form posed up in front of the other archers, and this panel just reminds me of this meme. He got that shit on. The freaks in the back do not. His design and style is quite clearly inspired by Robin Hood with the bicocket hat and slim light armored build. However, Miura makes it unique with his exaggerated features and demonic looking bow. There's a strange eye in the center of the bow, which is probably the cause of the perfect accuracy mixed with the heightened senses and abilities of an apostle, and his eyes are always drawn blank, but look pretty rad nonetheless. The marksman fires again and once again gets a perfect strike. Grunbeld is also fighting here, solidified as captain of the giant squadron in Griffith's army. His mighty shield blows away the Kushans once again, swallowing horse and human alike in his wrath. His glowing eyes being the only visible aspects of his dark shrouded face adds even more fear into his already overwhelming form, a true Kushan fly swatter. One reason these apostles are so special as well is due to their eerily sophisticated conduct. Whilst most demons are depicted as slathering beasts who want nothing more than to inflict destruction, pain, and satiate hungry lust for human flesh, Irvine, Locus, and Grunbeld seemingly suffer no such affliction. Locus next shows in chapter 194, educating Mule on Kushan culture and military dealings. It is clear Locus is not only vastly intelligent, but sophisticated and well spoken. Perhaps as a human he was of the nobility, it would make sense considering he is a knight, but now as a beastly spawn his hidden nature overwhelms Mule, activating a fear within him. His hair seems a direct opposite of Griffith's angelic gleaming white, sporting a flowing onyx. Locus mystically delivers this passage, trying to counsel Mules in a conflict that made me really wonder about apostle values. Locus is fundamentally not human. The process of transitioning to demon kind is freezing and expelling the last parts of their humanity, so the audacity to claim people with grudges are human deep down is laughable. Although not outright confirmed at this stage of the manga, the implications are all there that he is indeed an apostle, and common themes amongst their kind is the attempt of posing as human, and Locus's form is not yet known to the main human forces of the army. Mule finds out Locus's identity just after, and drops some exposition about the massive influence and power that Locus boasts, being an unbeatable knight that kneels to no master. Basically, aura. Irvine and Grunbeld come to the rescue of Sonia after she is captured by apostles. Irvine is perched up in a tree looking so goddamn cool as Grunbeld breaks the lesser being's arm with ease for daring to touch an ally with ill intent. His true bloodlust is purely devoted to ending Griffith's enemies, performing as a bodyguard / bouncer whilst not bashing skulls, a protector of justice within. Mule drops some exposition about his greatness, a giant hero from a northern country who protected his land from the Tudor Empire's invasion for a decade with only his personal force of 3,000 soldiers. He is very serious, jokes a foreign and ugly concept to him, advising a severe caution to Sonia when traipsing the darker parts of the reborn band. Yet her silly personality dances away, leaving him befuddled at her carelessness. His lack of a comedic side is amusing in itself, even if we are meant to fundamentally despise his kind. All apostles have a damnable prerequisite before achieving their status, sacrificing a loved or treasured person in their life, which does mean we can approach them with prejudice. However, these three and Zod make me wonder if all apostle kind is evil. I think there is definitely room for a debate, as apostles are born when a person is at the depths of despair with no option of survival or progression possible to them. The idea of evil weaves the threads of fate to make it practically impossible for one to deny the temptation of sacrificing for power, such as Griffith, Rosine, and the Egg Thing. My point is that the conditions of the ritual matter to a degree, as not all apostles are as shallow and hedonistic as those such as Wild, for example. Grunbeld's most iconic fight occurs from chapter 223, arriving with the reborn Hawks to demolish Flora and her repository of ancient knowledge and power. Griffith, obviously wanting himself to be the only omnipotent, omniscient force in the world, needs her gone, sending minions to do his dirty work. Grunbeld, expressing that warrior's code of honor, detests the task he was given of hunting an old lady with immense numbers, yet swallows his pride in order to prove his loyalty to Griffith. Whilst these apostles do have their own personalities and dislikes, the great chain of being dictates that Griffith's orders are supreme. Grunbeld challenges Guts to a duel of single combat, as his reputation precedes him, the mortal man who slaughters apostles, an arch enemy of demonkind. Guts is somewhat overwhelmed by both Grunbeld's size and his words, the chapter ending with the reader unsure if Guts can even survive this encounter due to his exhaustion and lack of armor, alongside Grunbeld's already monstrous feats. As expected, a single blow from Grunbeld's enormous hammer sends Guts flying as if striking a mere cricket ball. Dragonslayer is hopeless with absorbing the blow, and Guts comments that despite being in human form, Grunbeld's strength exceeds that of typical apostles. Clearly in a league of their own, the captains are examples of what true power can be achieved when disciplined and not carnally indulging. Even when nerfed, Guts is a serious warrior, and even he is hopeless at repelling Grunbeld's attacks. Grunbeld is unimpressed, giving us a montage of Guts being battered around like a child, bewildered at how Guts is so lacking in power and vitality. I guess he is a bit of a hardhead for assuming a warrior is continuously at the peak of their powers, choosing to watch Zod fight from across the field cast with a disappointed tone as his massive foot continues squashing Guts. Thankfully, that bad boy energy of Guts fires back, calling out the hypocrisy of Grunbeld for claiming the title of warrior whilst being a selfish and egotistical hellspawn. This really annoys him, clearly sensitive about those he deems as lesser, mocking his grandeur, booting Guts through the air like a weak little animal. Grunbeld delivers a venomous line, "Fall to pieces and litter the ground," which is admittedly my favourite of his, filled with disrespect and dismissal. Plot armor kicks in though, a Guts saved by a puppet that towers even above the Great Flame Dragon. Obviously the puppets pose no real threat to Grunbeld, yet the distraction allows Guts to escape. When we return, we see a scorched battlefield, crying with the fallen sacrifices that scatter the ground, Grunbeld alone encased by the ashes of his victims, criticizing Guts' use of shameful antics as if he chose to be saved by a Macca Pacca clone. Unfortunately, Grunbeld is soon to become a victim of the plot, as the debut of the Berserker armor changes the battle completely. Blasting through lesser apostles, Guts turns into a human ballista, pelting at Grunbeld with so much force he is toppled backwards. Grunbeld, rightfully perplexed at how a human could muster such power, still manages to fight back, but it is clear Guts is overwhelming him. I'm trying my best to remain unbiased and not go into goat throat mode for Guts during this fight, but Grunbeld himself is glazing, helpless as his mighty shield is destroyed, first being smashed with Dragonslayer, then eviscerated with Guts' own arm cannon, utilizing its smaller size to blow up the insides. Pause. He strikes back with a blow from his hammer, something that had previously demolished countless humans, but this time no dice. Guts, amplified to a scale unseen before in mortals, counters the swing perfectly, pounding the hammer into the floor, bent and broken. One reason for Grunbeld's character existing is to help scale the magnificence of the Berserker armor and how much of a boost it gives Guts, as up until now Grunbeld has not shown a threat in the slightest against his enemies. But now he finds a sword shoved firmly into his shoulder, blood spraying and weapons destroyed. The mighty Goliath toppled by David, as God, being Mira in this case, was with him. Now, I know I said Grunbeld was glazing earlier, but this part is up for a Hall of Fame in the entire goddamn manga, and just makes me laugh as it's during a fight to the literal death. I think the praise Grunbeld bestows to Guts comes purely from shocked amazement that someone can not only withstand but overpower him, as all apostles have to fall to their lowest, closest to death of self either mentally or physically. The fact a human can stand amongst them must be a powerful statement, and resonates with Grunbeld, someone who advocates honor and respect amongst the deserving fighters of this world. Being pushed so far, trademark wisps of smoke gush out of Grunbeld, slowly altering his form and debuting one of the most imposing, yet also basic apostle designs for Mira standards. Directly quoting from the Berserk wiki, his skin transforms into corundum, a crystalline form of aluminium oxide that is immensely durable and stronger than steel. His draconic appearance is ground-shaking and possibly the finest impregnable defense of the entire manga. However, Guts, inspired by the words of Bronn,
"Give me 10 good men and some climbing spikes. I'll impregnate the bitch."
manages to stop the full force swing of his Juggernaut's tail, and at this point Grunbeld is questioning what the point of even being an apostle is, going through a mid-demon crisis as every card he plays is seemingly swept aside. The two clash head on, and whilst Guts does get absolutely bodied and sent flying into the surrounding environment, limbs twisted and bones broken, Dragonslayer manages to penetrate the skin stronger than steel. The breathing benchmark of power continues to wonder what Guts is, annoyed at the losers on the sideline trying to get involved with his ones match. He unleashes his most powerful attack of them all, his fire breath that would incinerate nearly all others, but one of Grunbeld's main drawbacks of being a tank is his lack of attack speed and movement. Getting hit by his attacks can be fatal, yet a nimble and alert warrior such as Amped Guts is able to react, getting away. I did start to feel bad for Grunbeld as the crew were running, as this omnipotent being is struggling to snuff out a few battle-drained humans, and then Flora shows up. Basically an omnibenevolent goddess, he cannot touch her aura, and the fight between him and Guts ends in a draw of sorts. Without members such as Shirkei and Flora, I do think Grunbeld would have won eventually. His raw power would have pushed Guts to his limits and made the armor his own coffin, but like Thorkel states in Vinland Saga, a power hierarchy based on who beats who is not accurate, as factors will always play a role, knowingly or not. The remaining scenes of battle, including Grunbeld, did not challenge him at all, and it would be nice to see a more experienced Guts clash once more with Grunbeld and the rest of them. Locus and Irvine are both involved in the Windham infiltration mission to distract the Dread Emperor Ganishka, whilst Griffith and Zod save Princess Charlotte, as she is purely a political item. Irvine provides support from the rooftops, drizzled in the mystical glow of the moonlight as the band members move forth. He definitely could have helped more if he had to, but enjoys a low profile as the others filter through. Locus is the leading soldier for this task, clearly having a real passion for kebabifying eyeballs, this time launching his lance through a chimeric elephant. As someone who breathes creative writing, the exaggerated and noble way Locus speaks is ravishing to my soul, and honestly a lot more entertaining for me compared to scrappy gutter speech of characters such as Guts and Isidro. He and his vanguard continue making their way through the dead city, mauling any incoming Kushan with his demon strength and speed, reflecting arrow fire perfectly. His movements are provided cover by Irvine and his unit from even higher parts of the buildings, raining down like acid. When Locus arrives, he enters a diplomatic attempt with Ganishka, treating him with respect and dignity. Locus is the most loyal of the three when it comes to utter belief in the goodness of his master, and any ill-conceived notions towards Griffith's glorious purpose is something Locus takes very personally. He questions Ganishka on a bro-to-bro how he could oppose their rightful ruler, and when Ganishka mocks it, drowning himself in arrogant boasting, an infuriated spark is lit within Locus, his eyes glowing pure, sizzling white, calling Ganishka a fool. Locus's apostle design feels oddly futuristic to me, like an advanced metallic cybertronic alien, which takes me out of the pseudo-medieval fantasy setting momentarily when I see it. Unlike most other apostles who send out billowing smoke, Locus erupts into his form through an explosive electric-like blast from his eyes into a centaur-esque beast. I never noticed until now, but the fact we don't see any remnants of his armored horse after the transformation implies that he merged with it perhaps. Don't quote me on that though. His design has been criticized the most amongst the three, many calling it stupid, goofy, ugly or unappealing, and whilst I do think it is a little silly, mainly on his face with the thin lips, I don't exactly consider it bad as his back spikes are really cool at least. When in apostle form, Locus has an even wider range of attack, his lance now double-ended, allowing him to easily pierce over 10 enemies at once. He flexes on the Darker with a sweeping spin attack, smoothly decapitating about 20 of them in one. Obviously, a prerequisite of commanding a warrior unit in the Band of the Hawk is to harbour immense power, and his elegant fighting form earns the respect of Ganishka. Irvine shoots for the head of the snake, a perfect arrow with the spooky eye painfully focused at the Emperor. Surprisingly, the arrow darts right through, causing a shocked expression which is the most emotion Irvine has ever displayed, my nonchalant king, as this is probably the first time he's ever missed anything whilst being an apostle. He, like most, has no answer for the Stormform Ganishka, being easily dismissed with a thrashing strike. Locus does not attempt to fight, reverting back to words, smirkingly mocking Ganishka as his goal was successfully achieved. Distraction. Calling a withdrawal, Locus commands with divine authority and the others vanish back into the mists, leaving an infuriated Ganishka. Both Irvine and Locus's feats aren't that impressive from this fight, as Kushan soldiers Darka and Pishka are weaklings for easy butchering in the grand scheme, but it was a very cool spectacle that presented how competent the demons are when paired together. Irvine crops up in chapter 250 as Sonia wanders through the nighttime forest and comes across him playing alone what seems to be a lute next to a small campfire. The scene is very calming, a far cry from the crazed state many apostles enjoy, and he expresses how as a hunter he feels calmer alone, more attuned with the goings on around him. Him enjoying his solitude does raise questions to whom he may have sacrificed, as we are told as early as chapter 0.07 that it must be someone important to you, part of your soul, someone so close to you that it's almost like giving up a part of you. And by making such a sacrifice to demon kind, you'll be able to sever any last remnants of your own humanity. This is from the God Hand themselves, and sure, it was incredibly early on in the story as Miura was shaping his lore, however the implication has always remained the same since. Irvine, like Locus and Grunbeld, seems relatively human and empathetic, and due to Irvine's reclusive state, I do wonder what conditions he was faced with and whom he chose. Perhaps a hunting partner after sustaining a life-threatening injury, which is the reason he now hunts exclusively alone. I doubt we'll ever know who it was, but it's nice to theorize. The melancholic background and lighting do make us feel a lonely sense for Irvine, once again creating conflicting feelings for the Hawk of Light's main archer. Yet, at the end of the day, he is a demon under the layers of sophistication. Sonia, a character who receives a massive amount of hate from within the fandom, opens up about her loneliness due to her psychic abilities, feeling like an outcast to society. The two connect on their shared feelings of unsociable natures, and Sonia slowly nods off to the warm licks of the flames. Irvine covers the young girl in a cloak to keep warm and continues playing the lute as the night crawls onwards. Miura added this scene for a reason, perhaps to inflict the need to reconsider those we demonize as pure villainous cretins in the real world. Locus and Grunbeld are briefly shown in a flashback form in chapter 277 about Zod, whom I have also made a video on, go check it out. Grunbeld's classic militaristic tone returning and the glazing speaking on Zod's mighty power. Interestingly, his armor is different from last seen, probably as the other set was demolished during the battle, and whilst I prefer the stacked pauldron of this armor, which sort of reminded me of Daedric armor, just a lot bigger and more symmetric, the scaled breastplate of his prior is far more appealing to me as it fits so well with his arm shield. The liberation of Vritannis is the next major battle, saving the city from Kushan forces, and Irvine is back to being a perfect sniper from afar, his insane speed infecting the Kushan army with fear and confusion. This is easily my favourite panel of his human form, a meticulous focus cast upon his face, only surrounded by ammunition that could slay an army. He fires a volley of 5 arrows, and the arrows eviscerate Kushan generals in some hilariously visceral ways, through the back of the head and out the mouth, skewering both eyeballs, splattering brain matter, detaching noses, jaws, and even a flipping cochlea. Which yes, I had to research. His expert pinpointing of the main authority figures on the battlefield completely dislocates the cavalry's cohesion, sending countless troops toppling over into the moat. Locus is also seen pushing forwards like an unstoppable wave over protesting pebbles. In chapter 281, Grunbeld debuts newer weaponry with a much longer, stronger arm cannon shield than the original, which makes me wonder if he specifically manufactured it to help better counter fast, explosive enemies such as Guts. A much spikier hammer brutally massacring an entire turreted elephant, with more giants finishing his kills from behind. His helmet is also headed with a crystal-like horn like his release date. After capturing Ganishka, Grunbeld and the other giant forces lift the massive roof of the Emperor's main escort, which is drawn forth by at least 16 elephants. The giants, including Grunbeld, also operate as Hulk-like beings, relied on for their raw strength and ability to move mountains. They raise the roof effortlessly, allowing Griffith to summon the goddamn wind. Imagine being the self-proclaimed greatest conqueror with the vastest control ever recorded, yet your weakness is wind. Same vibes as when Godinel is defeated by a chuckling condom. Grunbeld just chills, watching the main event with his pals, but when Griffith greets the nobility, the demons are nowhere to be seen. Something Griffith sneakily does whilst establishing his control at first is not show the demons he has on the forefront of political or social events, knowing their personalities and appearances would hinder him gaining control. Due to his handsome and human features alongside his outstanding reputation amongst citizens of the realm, Locus is permitted to be close to Griffith when other demons are pushed back into the shadows for appearance's sake, as Pretty Privilege is the true villain of this story. He discusses politics with Mule, exhibiting once again his intelligent and understanding knowledge of warfare and humanity. He disregards the importance of current events though, focusing on Griffith's shine and the new world to come from this. Ganishka pops too many Percocets and transforms into Shiva, and Griffith with his entire army face the brunt of it. All three members are amongst the force, and Grunbeld and Locus transform in the same panel into the crystallized dragon and armored cyberhorse. They and the rest charge the Ganishka spawns like squishing ants in a long collection of brilliant double spreads that shows the unstoppable force of the unified power of Apostle kind. Miura's art was truly at its peak during the Shiva and arrival of Fantasia era for me, just phenomenal work that never gets old to witness, Grunbeld's magnificence captured as he flames and crushes his path out. Even amongst ginormous apostles his size is notable, towering over with smoke, steam or flame seemingly covering his entire body. Grunbeld doesn't struggle in slapping up the spawns. A Grunbeld of the past may have rejected certain orders if his moral ethics decided it unjust, but now I feel he has no autonomy of his own actions, under the same spell as most of the world. Chapter 300 is the first time we get to see Irvine's demonic release, his power pushed to a whole new level. His arrows are as long as spears and as strong as greatswords, saving Sonia once more. They also have the ability of splintering, exploding outwards from the original shot like branches, piercing the enemy from within. A brutal way to die for sure. His demon form is a fusion of his bow and body, which can be seen with the eye of the bow also in the head of the wolf's body, a very unique condition that is similar to the conditions of Locus, who merges with his horse. Irvine merges with his bow, and whilst his design does not adhere to conventional centaur anatomy, I'm sure inspiration derived from such. His face is just glorious, sharp teeth, antlered and furred, and this double panel position next to Griffith has so much aura, and you gotta feel bad for the other side when your opponent is literally Satan and his chosen underlings. Why he low-key look like Murray from Big Mouth if he hit the gym more though? Anyways, Sonia is where I want to be, and the two leap forth with immense speed and force, and this double spread shows us just how he crafts his arrows. He rips out and solidifies the strands of his flourishing tail, which allows for self-sufficient ammunition, and as anyone who plays ranger classes in games will know, finite amounts of ammo is the most annoying aspect of being a ranger. Irvine then places the lance of an arrow on the wolf part's mount, pulling it back with a web-formed string by the antlers. In terms of both functionality and artistic concerns, this design works well and is super interesting to analyze. Irvine unleashes Hell's arrows at more of Ganishka's spawns, as expected, demolishing them easily. It is no wonder he's a captain, as his power is dangerously versatile: speed, power, accuracy and range. Yet I feel his endurance is probably lackluster in comparison. One full-powered swing from Dragonslayer would be enough to beat him in my opinion. His body is not armoured nor beefy, but of course Guts would struggle to close down such a proficient ranged fighter, paired with the death speed of a giant wolf. Following the explosion of Fantasia into the world, the landscape is littered with beasts of a wild imagination, and the Neo band partake in the damage control. Rickert and co are faced with a bullsack-chinned cockatrice, but like many times before, the saving grace Irvine swoops in. He clearly just wanted to stunt on the huzz and flex the new fit, making sure everyone sees all goddamn angles of it. It definitely fits the magical vibe of the Fantasia arc, and gives me the vibe of a woodland spirit. His arrows are actually countered by the cockatrice, which forces him to level up his game. I know he was pissed that he had to ruin the fit to transform, but the transition itself is cold regardless, an explosion from the bow eye blowing demonic air over his body. Beyond this line being a real spine chiller, I think it reveals his true darker nature, that his obsession with killing his prey is all he cares for, a hunter who would use any means necessary to achieve his goal. Miura has a real talent for building hype over morally questionable characters, and also loves drawing double spreads for Irvine, once again blessing us with his transformed state in pristine quality. The cockatrice is no match for his released form arrow, and it perishes like all the rest with the splinter shaft sprouting from its body. Irvine poses nonchalantly as surrounding troops roar and hail him as the Arcane Archer, which is a very fitting nickname. After Ganishka's defeat and the explosion of Fantasia and Falconia, Locus becomes a fountain of wisdom for the citizens and refugees, including Rickert from chapter 355. As Locus idolizes Griffith, he describes his actions as noble, honorable and blessed. Rickert, however, can tell instantly that Locus is not human from a glance at his eyes alone. He deconstructs pointless human beliefs such as the divine right of kings, a subject history students get absolutely drilled into about to the point it gave me war flashbacks the first time reading it, and goes on to glaze Griffith again. From a sense of duty, Locus directs Rickert to the pit of hell in which the war demons reside due to him being of the past Hawk's feathers. It is a bit of a contrived reasoning and seems more of a way to show where Griffith has dumped all his demons from the Gleaming City, but hey, Locus and his ambiguous mystical speech will always be enjoyable. Pushing open the enormous gates of the dome, the beak and talons, as Locus puts it, of the Hawks are shown in complete jubilee of chaotic violence. He continues to admire Griffith's purpose, bringing both demonkind and humanity together as one, and I must say it is an impressive feat of authority, painting Falconia as this heavenly haven. A lot of the time during his descriptive fancy words, an undertone of evil sat just below, as we do know how and who Griffith really is, but to others like Locus, Grunbeld and Irvine, this saviour connected all the avenues of the world and therefore deserves eternal praise. This makes it even more beautifully hilarious of a moment then when Rickert bitch slaps Griffith's sexy face on the bridge after Locus lectures the greatness of him to Rickert, only for him to get slapped the very next moment. Obviously this is like Locus's 9/11 but on crack, watching the Griffith gang from above, furious enough to smash brick walls with a single palm. It is highly speculated that Roxas is sent by Locus to kill Rickert for his insolence and disrespect, and I believe this theory wholeheartedly. We have seen multiple occasions where Locus praises Griffith as a god and gets angry when others disrespect him, so it's hardly outside the realm of possibility for him to want to snuff out any opposition, as powerless as they may be. We briefly see Irvine in chapter 356 assist in the fight against the Jotnar, as usual from afar, providing support for the heavy hitters like Grunbeld and Zod. As a combined force, the apostles are truly remarkable, swiftly demolishing anyone like an unstoppable force, mainly due to every potential weakness being covered by the fantastical range of abilities that Demonkind offers, and further shrouds the future of Guts, his party and the remaining Kushan army in even more doubt for the final skirmish. His crystal back is then used as a leaping point for Griffith's horse, who sprints up on it and slays the leader. Griffith then makes his Pokemon use Scary Face and the remaining Jotnar flee. His tremendous size and strength is then utilized by the band to move the massive rock pillars to create a fast travel pathway back to Falconia. Mule and Laban admire both Grunbeld's power and character, Mule claiming he couldn't think of a more reliable comrade to risk his life with. Grunbeld is a highly respected member of the Hawks, known as a complete powerhouse by all, and I'm assuming he just killed everyone he could who witnessed him getting slapped up by a little black metal man. In chapter 358, Locus sits upon the council debate discussing the advances of the band's consolidation of power against fantasy creatures. I gotta say, even though Locus is pure evil at the core, I'd absolutely love to be on his side of a conflict. He exudes such an assuring sense of certainty that I'd feel ultimately convinced by anything he ever said, even if they were lies. Everyone else on the council seems to hold this sentiment, intently watching Locus as he reviews events. Apart from a few short moments of little importance, the most of which in chapter 372, when Irvine refers to Casca as a bird dozing peacefully in her cage, a pretty on-the-nose line for my liking, the three do not have any more significant moments to discuss. I was not a fan of Studio Gaga's first attempt at drawing Locus, which was a far cry from Miura standard. He looks a lot less imposing and focused, and just doesn't remind me of the Locus seen prior. Granted, this was when their art was at their worst, which improves every single chapter, and I will always remain hopeful in Gaga delivering. I decided to make some power cards for them, top trumps if you want to hit me up for a collaboration. I'm a highly qualified berserkologist and will be more than willing to accept a 99-1 split of profits. For Irvine, the focus of his ranged power and speed is what stood out to me the most. He comes across as very intelligent as well, whereas his endurance looked a little poorer, with quite the thin frame. My ranking for Grunbeld specifies his immense endurance and power output, but as we know, his speed and battle intelligence is lacking compared to the other two captains. I ranked Locus more of an all-rounder in battle. His armoured skin looked very sturdy, his weaponry is long-reaching and fast with the body of a horse, yet none of these aspects brightly shine from his character alone, so an emphasis on his battle intelligence and charisma was given. And that is all Irvine, Grunbeld and Locus, the Hawks monster trio, completely explained. This video blossomed into a far longer project than I initially thought, so be sure to like and comment if you enjoyed it. Tell me your own thoughts on these three, who I cannot wait to see more of, but hopefully against more important enemies rather than fodder. Until the next one though, I've been Vok, have a wonderful rest of your day, and peace out.